Good evening, and thank you for joining us here at TruthWorks Network for If America Fails, the Coming Tyranny. Tonight is our fourth episode, and joining us is Dr. James C. McINTOSH, and I'll tell you a little bit about him as we progress into this program. As you're fully aware, most of you, if you have read and appreciate the work of Margaret Atwood or the HULU production of The Handmaid's Tale, even before the regime and the civil war that established that regime in Gilead, the U.S. had a mental health system service crisis. And tonight at If America Fails, we're going to be looking at not only how that might have affected the survivors and the survival of being in the Republic of Gilead, but how we are coping today in America as we face the progressive encroachment of an authoritarian government and movements which would bring about the kind of society that we see in Gilead. Now, we look at Gilead And we encourage people in this series to understand that Gilead is the result of a failed state. And we ask the question, can it happen here? And then we pause and we ask, are you sure? I'm Janice Graham. I am the CEO of TruthWorks Network and a co producer of If America Fails. Thank you so very much for being with us tonight. Um, we had some organizational changes, and before we get into the program, one of the things that I want to do is to thank L. Michelle Odom for the awesome, tremendous work that she did to bring this project to fruition and to live broadcasting. Michelle has decided to move on from the project, and we respect that. But we do want to extend our accolades and our gratitude for the tremendous work of building the website and uh, 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 putting together the panel of experts that we thought were the most appropriate to address the issues that we see in um, in The Handmaid's Tale, this dystopian fiction that mirrors so many of the fears and the projections of what's going on in the US today. The focus is mental health, and we have titled this episode American Democracy Under Siege, the March to Unpersoning. And some of you would ask, well, what does that mean? And unpersoning is really the process of robbing a person of their personhood. And it creates people who feel they are helpless in their own lives, helpless and hopeless in resisting and fighting back in crisis, and hopeless and helpless in attempting to treat and heal their injury. So let me tell you a bit about our guest tonight. Dr. James McINTOSH is trained as a psychiatrist and he is retired. He spent over 40 years practicing medicine in the 5 boroughs of New York City. He is a writer, a community activist, an educator, a public speaker, and a talk radio host. His radio program, Mindfield. He uh, he secured his undergraduate degree in Black and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College, and a part of it, the City University of New York Cooney system. After graduation from Brooklyn Technical High School, he completed his degree in, after that graduation, he completed his medical degree at the New Jersey Medical School of the University of Medicine and Dentistry at of New Jersey, part of the Rutgers University system. He was the founder and owner of the Interns and Residents Licensing Review School. He has founded several organizations, and his community affiliations are so many. We have posted at ifamericafails.live a full bio of a full um, uh, life, both professional and community life, of Dr. McINTOSH. But his commitment to community is as strong as his devotion to medicine. which he has demonstrated in many, many leadership roles for decades. He tended to the mental health and educational needs of the Black community, filling in gaps of the public school system and helping to heal the psychological damage inflicted on people of African descent in America through two organizations, CMOTAP and BEPAA, which is BEPA, based respectively in Jamaica, Queens, and Harlem. And he brings together some of the most educated and community conscious, nationally recognized leaders in the Black community from every discipline and profession. He is a proud husband and father, an author, a public speaker, and producer, and has in the past been the winner of the Father of the Year award from a coalition of organizations, um, including the Southern Queens Park Association and the Queens Million Man March coordinating community. You can follow him on Twitter at Dr. James C. McINTOsh and find him on Facebook. But you can find him in full bloom at the If America Fails .live website created by El Michelle Odom. And it is my pleasure and honor to have met him this evening and to have him join us in this discussion. Dr. McINTOsh, thank you so very much. It's jumping. It keeps jumping back. I'm trying to bring you in, and it keeps jumping. There you are. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight at If America Fails. I'm trying to figure out um, just why this board is plays games with me in this broadcast. I do not know. But tell us a bit about the work that you do as a trained psychiatrist in the mental health system in New York.
Okay, well, I did residency at both Harlem Hospital for 3 years. For 2 years after that, I served as president of the nation's largest union of salaried physicians called the Committee of Interns and Residents. And then I completed a final year of residency and fellowship in public and community psychiatry, working out in the suburbs, a little suburb called Rikers Island, which is off the coast of New York, that is actually a prison. And I did that at Montefiore, as a part of the Montefiore psychiatry program at Einstein Medical School of Yeshiva University. And
Mhm.
since that time, that fellowship prepared me to work in public and community psychiatry, to work and so I've worked in numerous settings, clinics, shelters, um, a little bit of hospital work. And I've worked with formerly incarcerated people, with alternative to incarceration programs, all kinds of things in the public setting. Um, and I've done that over the course of about 40 years. It'd be hard to really narrow down, to tell you like I was in one field or another. I've served as medical director at a few places, as an executive director at the clinic on 145th Street in Amsterdam. This was a council center for problems of the living, also called Upper Manhattan Mental Health Center, but it was a full service center, not just psychiatry. But the thing about it, I think that made it easier for me is that I started out in Black Studies. I was a student of Professor John Henry Clark. I was actually with the students that helped to um, fight to bring him there and to keep him there at Hunter College, even though he didn't have the technical um, degrees and credentials that they wanted. However, he demonstrated for us that he could make those PhDs on our faculty basically turn their degrees into toilet paper. I mean, I saw him literally demolish the faculty council in a, a one-on-one debate. He told the English instructors what they didn't know about. Um, about English literature, about the contribution of Africans to English literature. He told the Romance language teachers what they didn't know about Pushkin and what they didn't know about several generations of the Dumas family.
Mhm.
He told the math instructors what they didn't know about the origin of mathematics and that sort of thing. And eventually he became chairman of that department over the course of years, and they now brag on him as one of their distinguished professors. But so my background came from that. I was in Black Studies. I was mentored. In fact, I had Dr. Professor Clark for 16 credits. And so when I went into medical school, I went in with a different perspective. When I became a physician, I believe I had a different perspective from the average physician. And working in the community is the only thing I could have done. That's all I know is working in and for my community. I was happy enough. I was fortunate enough to meet a sister who formed an organization called CMOTAP. And, I was one of the co-founders, and it was involved with the media. It was the Committee to
Mhm.
Eliminate Media Offensive to African People. And of course, this is greatly tied to mental health because um, replacing live experiences in 2022, the media probably is playing more of a role in people's experiences. More people have more vicarious experiences than they have at any other time during history. They know what it's like to see a person sawed in half. They know what it is to see somebody, even though they haven't had those experiences directly, they've had them on the TV. They know what it is to shoot people. They've done it in their video games, that sort of thing. And so, CMOTAP, we found a lot of these things that we saw destructive to our community and offensive to our community. And I'm, really just skimming the surface because the blatant racism of the mass media was something that we paid attention to. But over the years, I think I've evolved, uh, thanks to Professor Clark and many others, to the position that, even though our topic today is if America fails, I see our future as being larger, more global than America. And I see our population, our people, as being uh, a part of a larger community. The United States is in the place with the with the greatest number of Africans, or the greatest number of Africans who have left the continent or were
Mhm.
brought to other
Mhm.
places. Brazil, they list themselves as having about 14 million African people, but if you look at it closely, they they list their population at 200 and something million, and they say they have 40. In addition to those 14 million that they call black, they have uh, 43% that they call mulatto. And when you take that into consideration, we're talking about a nation of 100 million Africans right here in the Western Hemisphere with us. Obviously, countries like Nigeria have 200 million. Other countries, the Congo, many countries have more people than us. And this issue of if America fails, you might get a totally different answer or a totally different set of emotions if you checked with Africans all over the world.
Mhm.
Because this country, it it destroys other people's economies through sanctions. It destroys other people's and through massive debt that they have people in. They destroy people's countries through regime change. Multiple African leaders have been assassinated. People like Patrice Lumumba. These are things that you can read in the New York Times. They're not things I'm saying. The New York Times cited the CIA's top scientist is saying he was going to go give Lumumba a detectionless poison, but by the time he got there, Lumumba had already been assassinated. But So our view, this idea that America is a democracy, is a limited view. It's a narrow view, and it's also a view that we have acquired through miseducation and through propaganda. But if you were to go around the world and really talk to people, they would tell you what America really is. It's not a democracy. It's never been a democracy for me personally, because I was born in South Carolina. And when I used to get to DC on the train, I started traveling on the train by myself at about the age of 5. One of my grandmothers would come and get me, and she would walk me to the back of the train. I didn't know why we would walk. She told me, I thought it was just to visit my grandmother, to just see her. And then I'd be on the back of the train. When I got to the town that I was going to, Florence, South Carolina, there were 2 stations. They were right next to each other. There was the black station and the white station. Obviously, the whole thing of the drinking fountains and that sort of thing. And these things were true all the way up through when I graduated from high school.
Hmm.
So it's never been a democracy for me. And I heard I heard one of your speakers on your programs. It was Obama's minister, and he just went down the list of the ways in which it was not. It was that famous speech in which he said,
Oh, you
"No,
mean on our common ground?
on your common ground," right? I looked,
Uh-huh.
I wanted to know,
Hmm.
where am I going? Whose show am I going on? And I was pleasantly surprised to see your piece in which he talked about the scientific
Hmm.
experimentation that's been
Hmm.
done on Black people, how we're the
Hmm.
lowest paid, how we're outside of equal protection of the law, how we don't even have the equal right. I mean, he just basically went
Hmm.
through it. We don't have
Hmm.
equal protection of the law. We don't have equal wealth. We don't have equal access to education. We don't have we don't have any of those things that you would expect if it was really this sort of equality and democracy. So it's never been a democracy for me. I'm not looking to it to become one. I don't expect it to become one. The very people that you have in the government right now some of them are responsible for literally destroying Black people, uh,
Hmm.
at home and abroad.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
You're
so
you're
I can stop right there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yes,
about to take us on our common
a
ground
trip.
for a minute. But I do
Yes,
want to say that I absolutely agree. But most Americans have been delusional about the content of the character of this country. Um, I lived 6 months following the genocide in Rwanda. I grew up in the Jim Crow South when it was Jim Crow. And
absolutely.
I also was a student of Dr. Clark. I interviewed him twice on Our Common Ground prior to our loss of him. And Jeremiah Wright, who the speech that you're referring to, I think that that was the speech of that decade. Um, and I wonder, I checked with our guest last week on If America Fails, wrote the biography, Jeremiah Wright's biography, and
Really?
the book of Jeremiah,
Okay.
Dr. Susan K. Williams Smith. She was with us last week to talk about um, the impending doom and religion and the role that it played. Let me ask you, in this delusion, and I'd like for you um, to give us an idea about, as we see the changes to an authoritarian government that borders on fascism, what are the mental health issues that are going to arise for working people, for poor people, for black and brown people and red people who live under the delusion that what we now have and what is threatened is democracy?
Okay. Now, the reason we don't see it as a delusion is because really it doesn't technically fit the definition of a delusion. A delusion is a fixed false idea not shared by others, not responsive to logic or reasoning. It fits everything except that it's not shared by others. We have mass, unless we use the term mass delusion, you know, just the average person who's thought to be a sane and healthy person. Uh, they're delusional under that. They're delusional if we just get rid of that one qualifier. So they're not delusional, but they are part of a mass delusion. And the kinds of things that we expect to see are the things we've already seen. They're the sorts of things that happen to our people and the sorts of things we experience. You can read books where we were suffering from the same symptoms during slavery. So they're the problems that you get. Let's first start with the three noxious emotions. So those three noxious emotions are sadness, fear, and anger. And those emotions have their own, each one has their own single stressor. So, but without belaboring it, when anytime somebody is sad, that's because of loss. They could lose a family member, they could lose a uh, they could lose some money, they could lose their job, they could lose their freedom. So we expect lots of depression. If you talk about anxiety, that's just another word for fear. And fear is a natural emotion that we have that is to help us when we're dealing with danger. It's supposed to tell us to do one of three things. So we're going to see those kinds of disorders that come as a result of fear. We're going to see anxiety. We're going to see various types of obsessive behaviors. We're going to see uh, paranoia. Okay, we're going to see fear. And then when we talk about anger, clearly um, we're going to see people that are violent. We're going to see
Mhm.
people commit violence against themselves and against others. And I
Mhm.
mean, that's just a summary, people that hurt themselves, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
all of the things we're seeing now. And then if you take a look at certain syndromes you mentioned before, trauma has its own set of, its own syndrome, which maybe fear is the largest part in it. Maybe anxiety is the biggest piece of it. It used to be classified among the anxiety disorders. I don't know if it still is. However, that has a whole set of things that we do see. We see people who are having recurrent, intrusive, distressing recollections of the stuff that has been happening,
Mhm.
and of the things that they've experienced. And so, it's not something we have to speculate on. It's something that's already happening. Only sometimes we are in a group of people that are not in this group of people that are sequestered and going through this. If you were
Mhm.
to look at our prisoners, okay, you would get a sense of what it is like to live under totalitarianism. There are people who don't share the protections of the Constitution. And the things that are happening to them are cruel and unusual, which is a violation of the Constitution. If we look especially at our political prisoners, I mean, we have people like you take Lieutenant Calley, who shot up, killed like maybe I think it was around 400 people in Vietnam. He was court-martialed. They made a big deal on the on in the newspapers and on the TV. But then he was sentenced to this long sentence. He actually did about 4 years, and I think it was under house arrest. If you
Mhm.
look at the uh, police officer who shot the guy in the BART station in California, he did less time than Michael Vick got for killing a dog, which was 2 years. He got less than that. So, so the kind of syndromes that we're asking about, all you have to do is go to the prisons and see
Yeah.
what's happening to prisoners.
Mhm.
There are
Mhm.
people that are actually becoming psychotic from the solitary confinement and the kinds of things they're subjected to. We have
Mhm.
people that, because of their involvement in the civil rights movement and the struggle to liberate our people like Jamil El-Amin, have been in prison the last 21 years. Dr. Matulu Shakur, who pioneered in acupuncture to help people who are addicted to drugs, he's been in jail 30, been in prison 35 years. And then you find that the average sentence, and then we got people like, there are other people, there are people who have been in for 40 and up. And I'm not, I mean, I can go through some of them, but I won't go
Mhm.
through all of them. But just know that there are people who are doing 3 times the sentences of the average murderer in the United States. The
Mhm.
average murderer in the United States serves 16 years, and we've got people that are serving 42 years. So if you talk about totalitarianism, it's not a thing from the future. It's something that's being done now, but it's done to certain segments of the population, and that segment is spreading. That's why they
Mhm.
call it mass incarceration
Mhm.
now. So
Mhm.
again, I'll try to make my answers a little shorter, but when you ask me these things, like it's a matter of how your mind, it's a matter of how we frame the question. For me, these questions, we're not talking about hypotheticals. The totalitarianism, when people can go into your computer, when people can arrest you, not tell you what you're charged with, keep you in a secret place that nobody knows about, and that sort of, you're already there. The Patriot Act and these things gave people the rights to do these things, and they're doing them. We have
Mhm.
massive surveillance of people. We have massive invasion of their privacy. We have people serving sentences under conditions that anybody would define as cruel and unusual.
Unusual. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they're cruel and usual here, but I mean they would meet the Constitution's definition of cruel and unusual.
I think that one of the things, and I I try to see it. I do see it as a positive. One of the things that I think has been so good about this Handmaid's Tale series is that there are people who live behind the curtain and don't have a sense of the realities that you just outlined. And when they see this production, when they see this movie, this TV, when they read the book, then they begin to think, well, wait a minute. Um, that's kind of like, and it's conceivable, and it helps them to build the ability to see what you just outlined. I brought a video for tonight when we're talking about violence and terrorism and physical threat and the kind of trauma that is visited upon not only prisoners but also children in our schools, where our children become the problem as described. And in this video, it's part of the HULU production of The Handmaid's Tale. Um, a black handmaiden is accused of betrayal, and there is one handmaid who has simply devised and manipulated her into believing that um, she was going to be uh, victimized by the authorities in charge. Let's take a look at it. It's
I grew to like that.
Blessed be the fruit.
May the Lord open. I finally know how Offglen felt. What made her put on that bomb vest. And I know how Emily felt. Right before she stuck a knife in Lydia's back.
I was thinking about you last night, how I have failed you. I prayed on it.
Yes, Aunt Lydia?
All I want is for my girls to be protected and safe as they fulfill their sacred duty. I think it's about time we got you out of that house.
What?
It's become quite clear that the Lawrence household is dangerously unorthodox. First Emily, and all your recent troubles.
It's my understanding that Commander Lawrence requested me personally.
There are commanders more powerful than Lawrence, dear. In the end, it's about the fitness of the family. Eleanor is ill, as you know. And Commander Lawrence, well, is that really a home for a child?
Matthew. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother.
Seriously? What the actual
Again, we want to thank people for those of you who have joined us for this broadcast tonight. Our guest is Dr. James C. McINTOSH. Dr. McINTOSH, one of the reasons I keep getting out that my daughter is trying to explain to me how this works, but one of the things that reasons that I chose that particular scene from the Hulu production is to really talk about when people come into stressful situations, they try to find a safe place to be where there is the least threat. And when that safe place is threatened, the kind of trauma, violence, and mental health issues that come up. Now, that particular handmaiden had decided, well, if this is it, this is it. And I'm going to go along with the program and I'm not going to make any trouble. And we see a lot of people in our lives saying, well, people do bad things and that's why they go to prison. Well, people I need to go to my job and go along to get along because I have to pay my mortgage. I'm not going to get involved in a police reform resistance program because the police can come and harm my family. And that's what we saw in that scene. where I don't know the woman's name, but the handmaid felt that her safety and security was going to be was threatened. And as a result, in the worst kind of situation, she still could not handle it. What do we say to people about facing these new challenges? And they are new challenges. I mean, we look at the attack on the Capitol. We look at a number of things that's going on that is so different. Black people are looking at the absolute refusal to affirm our agency as citizens through our right to vote in the last 5 years. So so how do we keep it together?
I didn't know this was the trials for the Nobel Peace Prize. I didn't know that I was being, you know, interviewed for that. Listen, Marcus Garvey said that if 400 million Negroes, and that's what he was talking about, the number of black people that he estimated in the world at that time, can only get to know themselves, to know that in them is a sovereign power, an authority that is absolute, then in the next 24 hours, we would have a new race, we'd have a nation, an empire, irrespective of what the world thinks. You have to attach yourself to something larger than your individual problems, and you have to be able to, because that is what will give you your power. Knowing yourself is the first step in that. And it also protects you from fear. Uh, and that's the only thing that I can say. If you can put this into some sort of context, it can help you. My co-chair and I, we always say if one of us starts to feel a particular way, what we say, Harriet wouldn't feel sorry for you. You can start feeling sorry for yourself, or you can start feeling afraid. You have to think of, there was a poet, Gylan Kane. He said, everything that can be done to you has already been done.
Hmm.
When
Hmm.
you understand that your connection to the rest of our people, uh, I think it can be helpful,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
people feel, when you feel alone, that's the worst type of suffering, and that's the worst type of fear can overtake you. But when you realize you're part of something larger, and when you realize and one thing that makes it easy for you, is Sun Tzu talks about in battle, not to completely encircle the enemy, because you'll make brave men out of cowards. And these people haven't seemed to learn that lesson. They really are leaving us with no option. I mean, they're circling our community, and they're putting us in a situation where that option won't be there for you. Where, I mean, when you talk about Trump and these people, they're not thinking about leaving us any option. And that obviously is something that should embolden you, because you're darned if you do and darned if you don't.
Hmm. Hmm. You know, it occurs to me, Dr. McINTOsh, and I really don't mean any offense to anyone in the audience who are with us tonight, or who will listen to this conversation um, and discussion on demand. But it has occurred to me after 35 years of doing, well, I just entered my 36th year. I don't know. But anyway, after I have interviewed um, the best Black minds uh, in the diaspora. I have been honored to do that. I have been honored to learn from them. I have been honored to sit at their needs. And what occurs to me, and in what's happening, and the mental health crisis in this country with white people is, and they look at this Hulu thing production and they say, oh my God, the people are white and they're hanging on the wall. They were hung for talking back. They were hung for wanting to have their own children. They were hung for trying to escape. Oh my God, they're white people. And this might happen.
Do you think
Not
it's right
prepared.
on the surface
Not
like that in their
prepared.
minds?
Pardon me?
Do you think that it's really on the surface like that in their minds? Is that's what
No,
alarms them?
no. I think that one of the reasons that it is this production, Hulu production, and the book is so um, popular is because it's something that they're synthesizing through. I mean, this is the fourth season. This will be the fourth season or the fifth season of the Hulu production. And I think people are seeing that. They're seeing what happened at the Capitol. They're seeing these obscene, um, racist and support of white supremacy in their midst, and they're getting new language. They're thinking about Michelle's term that she introduced to us in the first episode, anocracy, which is a combination of some democracy and some
Anarchy.
authoritarianism. And I'm saying, well, I've been living in that all my life. I mean, this is nothing. This really isn't anything new. But coming to the realization that for a great majority of citizens in America, the thought of having no liberty and having no freedom has never been something that they have had to consider. And it's causing mental health problems.
At least they didn't know it. They didn't know that that was something they had to consider. But the
Yes.
protocols for locking us up in concentration camps, those things were written long ago. I mean, then it's not anything new. But so you feel that there are people who are now becoming aware of the impending totalitarianism and that they are losing it as a result of that.
For them, for
Mhm.
them.
Right, because this show, it's so funny the things that they are that they have European characters, these things happening to them. These are the things that actually already happened to us. This thing of the
Hmm.
forced breeding and that sort of stuff. They had
Hmm.
breeding farms for Africans. These are
Hmm.
things that are not outside of the memory of some
Hmm.
people. There was plenty of survivors of the enslavement period when I was born that were around. There were,
Hmm.
people could, and certainly their children are around, and they've heard stories, and they know the things, and then we see some of the pathology that we see. It has to be a result of that. Dr. Joy DeGruy has written, these things on post-traumatic slavery syndrome, and others also have written about it. It's a real thing. We are experiencing. We have those experiences inside of us. They've been passed down to us culturally, and they're real. Now, that why they're putting it in this way, to me, what I saw really reflected a few European stereotypes that I've always seen. They very narcissistic. They have to see themselves as the center of everything. If they do a movie on Rosewood in which all of these black people got killed, they got to be the train conductor, saving the people. Somehow they have to put themselves in the middle of this. And so the important part of that scene was not that black woman suffering. It's this European woman that they focus on the expressions on her face, and she's the lead character in this program. But
Hmm.
it's easier to I mean, I respect the artists. They can present things in any way that they want to, but this mythical world reflects a real world that many of us have already experienced. And I sense your you're concerned that it's sick out there and it's getting sicker, and you're probably right.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're probably right. And people can do. I mean, there's many levels you have to look at. And I don't expect a person who's suffering from real mental health problems to take this global kind of a view that I'm taking. You've got to go to professionals, and you've got to go to professionals that you trust. You've got to do your own self-help things to do to try to get yourself better. Dr. DeGrew has a workbook for you to, try to do things to get yourself better. But I'm speaking, as I said before, on a more global, in a more global sense.
Hmm. And for those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Joy DeGrew, her book and her workbook is help me, Dr. McINTOSH here.
Post-traumatic slavery syndrome.
Post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Mhm.
Yes, and I think that June in Gilead would have benefited from that book before she figured out she couldn't get to Canada. Uh, but we won't go
Was that
there.
June who got murdered by the police just now, or
No,
murdered by another? Yeah.
June was the central figure that was who
Uh,
had forced this woman into essentially suicide by bullying through bullying.
okay.
But most people won't see it that way. Most people will see that she was a traitor. But what she was a kindergarten teacher before she was a handmaid. And she wasn't prepared to be part of the resistance. They were pissed off at her because she wouldn't be part of the resistance, and she was threatening to um, to reveal what was going on in the resistance. So everybody just, um, but you picked up on the nuance that Michelle and I have been talking about and discussing um, this book and its whiteness, because it is so white. It really is. But it was written by a white woman. How could it
Mhm.
not be white? So, anyhow, um,
A Canadian woman,
yes.
mhm.
And
Atwood, Margaret Atwood.
yeah. And, one of the interesting parts about it, and that was in Massachusetts, is where in the story this all begins. I couldn't figure out why people were trying to escape to Barbados or the
One of the
Caribbean.
worst.
I couldn't figure that out. Everybody was trying to get to Canada, um, so they were all going. And then in the Civil War, which was still happening in Chicago in the story in the Hulu production, there were groups of bandits, and they were initial, but they were people who were just simply had given up and decided that day by day survival was the way in which to survive. And so, my question to you, Dr. McINTOSH, is this: how do we begin to help people make, build the bridge between what they see and know and the policies, the governmental policies that are currently in place? For instance, the whole issue of police reform, because right now we have most police departments in most cities are military details. How
Yes.
do we begin to help people recognize that they have to have these intellectual, mental um, bridges to help them analyze what is in front of them? And these people and the fans of the Handmaid's Tale to help them do a better job of processing. It's not going to be just like this, but it's going to be something like this. And I've been saying to people who are fans, you need to talk to your Black friends about the to do the comparative analysis between what is now in the United States of America and what this program is portraying.
Right. I think that the obviously the program is doing things symbolically because I don't think that those specific kinds of things that the things are so exaggerated that that may not be what you know we have to really worry about if we're going to worry about it. But I think that because we got 46 million Black people right here in the United States and 100 million more, in the rest of the Americas, we're not going to all agree on one solution, you know, but we do have to try multiple approaches. My focus is not on these elections and these things that that you talk about, but I don't mind. There should be some people who focus and do what kinds of things can be done in the electoral politics arena. But there also have to be people who are trying to um, build what Mr. Garvey said we should do, which is to like try to get a nation of our own. And I don't think it can be here in the United States. And I don't think that all of us are going to leave or go someplace else. I think that we're going to try different strategies. But what we have to do is kind of unite on some of these threshold issues. And the only thing we can do is basically, and I heard you say it one time, what we have to be concerned about is to create the ability to resist the oppression, regardless of the programs that I took a look at. And I think that that's where the focus has to be. It's not so much on America. It has to be on us. How do we make ourselves stronger? How do we make ourselves more independent? How do we make ourselves more unified? How do we make ourselves more connected with our motherland, the place that birthed our ancestors? And how do we make, because when you have a strong nation, that will give you some protection. There's some things that won't be done to any other ethnic group but us because they have strong nations that will say something if those things kind of happen to them. And so I don't know if I'm, because we kind of looking at things like so differently. I'm not certain that I'm answering your questions. It's hard for me to put my
Well,
mind into the frame. It's hard for me to fit my mind into the framework that you are
hmm
uh,
hmm
presenting for me. And it's
yeah.
my lack. I can't. I just I just don't. It's like almost like I don't know what we're talking about. This thing here, this show, this Handmaid's Tale. I never saw one episode of it. I wouldn't
hmm
tend to even look at one episode of it. I
hmm
believe you can learn something from anything. Amiri Baraka once said you could learn something from a piece of Agnew under
Right.
a step. Many of these people don't remember Agnew, Spiral Agnew. So you can learn something from something. But I'm probably more focused on real stuff that's happening. As I told you before, this country goes around assassinating people all over the country,
hmm
destroying their economies, doing regime change. They're
hmm
trying to put their military all over our continent. Uh, and we're getting more and more boxed in. They're taking more and more of us here in the United States and putting us in these prisons, this mass
Yeah.
incarceration thing.
Yeah.
The police brutality thing, I mean, I think that some of the responses that we've generated have been good, but a lot of times we're starting with false premises. We think they need more training.
hmm
Training causes them to kill more of you. They were
Yeah. The
trained that if
question
you
is
put your
training for what?
there you go, and they're in charge
Yeah.
of that.
hmm
They know
hmm
what they wanted. The people who put these police forces into place have them there for reasons other than we think, and they're not likely to respond to our request or whatever it is. It really
hmm
takes, as I said before, organizing ourselves and uniting ourselves and focusing our energies towards those things that will save us.
Well, here's the deal. I think that there are people who genuinely and want to address the issues of mental health in our communities. That they recognize that COVID combined with Trump, combined with the, the, the ravages of the last term of Barack Obama, all the way back to Ronald Reagan, or even Dwight Eisenhower. I had to tell somebody the other day. I remember when I was in the fifth grade, we used to have to read in the black schools in the South. You had to read your weekly reader, which was the newspaper for children, every week, every Monday morning. So
Hmm.
I can recall the administration of Dwight Eisenhower and his relationship to Richard Nixon and their relationship to um, the military industrial complex. Everybody had to have a war. So, one of the things that I think where you can be helpful is to help people begin to evaluate what should be the mental health priorities in communities to address this. I call it in to address the um, programs being put forth by insurgents.
The the way you're looking at this, the way that I look at it, I should say, would be considered probably ill. I mean, it would be defined as ill. I externalize. I don't see the problem being our mental health. I see the problem as being what is being done to us. I think that people looking for an answer should read Fanon, because when you start fighting against those things, that's when you will start to feel better.
Mhm, mhm,
But
mhm,
if they just fired you from your job because you wouldn't take a vaccination, or you just lost your job because your industry is affected by the small amount of people that come and utilize the thing that that you were making, or that you were doing, for instance, running a restaurant or whatever it is, and you feel
mhm,
good, there's something wrong with you. If people, if the young people are getting or want to killing each other, being taught to kill each other on the television, if every single channel is showing them another way that they can kill each other, uh, and they're doing it, and you're feeling good, there's something wrong. That's what I consider to be mental illness. Now, these other things, I do admit. I mean, I'll admit that as I said before, depression and post-traumatic stress disorder and those things, they can exist. Well, then you need to go to a mental health professional and try to get help for those things. But what will make you feel better, if you're, I think would make the average person feel better, is one, get information about what is it that is causing you to feel this way. Why are you, you're not imagining that you're being oppressed. You are being oppressed, and then trying to take effective action about it. Learning who you really are, learning who you are. You're not these characters that they're showing you on TV. You're something greater, you're something larger, you're something bigger, and you're a part of something larger. You're not an American, as Malcolm X said, because if you were an American, these kinds of things wouldn't be happening to you. They don't see you as an American. You see yourself as an American, and that's okay. I'm not trying to fight with you. If you feel that maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong, but the long span of history tells me that you're wrong. They sometimes they slip when they're talking. You watch these, and they'll talk about black people and then Americans. They'll they make a distinction between who it is that they're talking about. What we have to do is get power, and we have to get united, and we have to get a larger perspective than we have. We're not America is not going. I don't believe America is going to save you. If they save you, then I'll be wrong, but I don't think so. On the basis of
Mhm.
what I've seen, as I look at history, it does, and as I look at the preparations they're making and the things they're doing, it doesn't appear that they're
Mhm.
planning
Mhm.
for us. They're planning for them.
Well, according to Margaret Atwood, for us, it's genocide. Get rid of our books, get rid of our history, and then get rid of us. Um, you refuse. I always say to people, we refuse to be invisible. So now you just want to kill us off, because we didn't
Mhm.
cooperate, because we wrote books and because we studied and because we protested and we resisted and we made you, if you were a reasonable mind, look pretty silly. So, and evil. So now we're in a new era, and that era is you won't go away, you won't be silent, you won't be invisible. So now we've got to figure out something else to do with you. And they've certainly been doing it um, for a long time. I mean, I remember, and most of the people in the audience may not be aware that in the South during Jim Crow, if you were a juvenile and you got caught in the street doing something that wasn't necessarily against the law or a violation of the law, but the police didn't like it, and it was white police, then what happened is you got sent to to Boys Town. And what did they find in Boys Town 3 years ago? 243 sets of human bones of young boys in Florida. So that was the disposal system. And what we find in the Handmaid's Tale is a whole nother different kind of disposal system, but it's a disposal system not just reserved for Black people. I know that we were going to be with you for an hour, Dr. McINTOSH, and I know you have to get to a meeting, but tell us how we can join you in your broadcast.
Okay, my show is called The Minefield. It comes on radio WBAI 99.5 FM on Wednesdays that's in New York, on
Mhm.
Wednesdays at 2 p.m. You can also reach it by going to WBAI.org.
Mhm.
They have a way that you can listen to it in real time as it's occurring, and they also have a way that you can go into the archives and see it after the fact.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. And I'm certainly going to be calling you because I'd like to have a wider, more comprehensive discussion with you about America, um, and about, I'm going to be meeting, I always call it meetings. I'm going to be meeting with Dr. Harold French to talk about his new book, Born in Blackness, which I think is a wonderful new way of helping us to understand our global um, ancestral line. So maybe the two of us can get together and talk about any new activities or events coming up for you.
Certainly, we have a program on Saturday, tomorrow. I guess that would be, yes, Saturday tomorrow, which
No,
in which
Friday. Tomorrow's Friday.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Saturday we still have 2 days, and it's
Mhm.
called the educational priorities for our youth in 2022. And in that, see, we're going to have different perspectives. We're going to have people who basically are trying to work through the system, and then we're going to have people who are uh, trying to set up independent sorts of ways of addressing these things. We're going to have
Hmm.
Dr. Lester Young, who is the chancellor of the New York State Board of Regents. We're going to have Dr. Adelaide Sanford, the legendary educator, who was a teacher
Legendary.
right in my elementary school, by the way. And
What?
yeah, absolutely. So, and she's the vice chancellor emerita of the New York State Board of Regents. We're going to have Brother Basia Mchawi, who was one of the workers in the East organization, which founded the Uhuru Sasa School. And he's going to be giving his perspective. And then we have the President General of my government, which is the UNIA. The UNIA is the black man's government all over the world. And this is the President General, Michael Duncan, who's going to be there wearing his hat for a group called the Student Improvement Association. So you're going to get a spectrum of perspectives. You know, you're going to get people who work one way, but they're all working together. They're unified in this program. That's going to be February the 5th at 2 p.m. The meeting ID, it's a Zoom, is 818-0835-8435. I'll repeat that. It's 818-0835-8435. And the passcode is 113369. The passcode is 113369. And if you didn't get it and you want to call me to get it, you can call at 347 907 0629. My number is 347 907 0629. And you can get the information you need for that Zoom.
And
I
this
thank you.
this will be on Saturday at what time?
Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, February the 5th. Saturday, February the 5th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
If you shoot me an email, I'll certainly post it on our If America Fails website and also post it on TruthWorks Network Twitter feed.
I really appreciate it. And I think that I've got to find some way to have you on my radio program, Minefield, and where I can get a sense of your kinds of ideas about mental health and what can be done for it, other than things that Fanon said.
My sense of mental health is folks
Yes.
need to lose their mind and come to their senses. That's my mental health advice for the night.
I get it. I get it.
Dr. James McINTOsh, we certainly look forward to having you as part of the TruthWorks Network um, family. And thank you. And we are so grateful for you to spend this time in imparting some really great wisdom because during the holidays, I'll tell you, um, I spent the holidays with my daughter and her family. And my daughter spent almost a half a day because her father was a collector of nutcrackers. This is all New England stuff. People from the South don't know anything about that. I'm just catching up. But anyway, someone called her and told, and she collects crisp black African Afrocentric Christmas decorations. So someone called her and said, "Hey, there's a 6 foot black nutcracker at a certain store in Providence, Rhode Island, and they only have two." Well, we ended up going there and getting it, and I'm saying, wait a minute, what about all these anti-racist, liberal, progressive white people? We're running around about these black, for years, black Christmas decoration. I don't see our white friends thinking about they got to put some black ornaments on their Christmas trees. What's with that? And because they want to talk about kumbaya and a shared vision. Um, and these are the things. These are the things, as Dougie Fresh used to say. These are the things. So I think we do have to kind of like synthesize for people who say, oh, I don't ever want it to be a Republic of Gilead in America, when in fact you are living in a republic of oppression, white supremacy, racism, and class destruction right now. So that's that's what I think we have to do in terms of formulating our strategies to address the mental health problems in America.
Okay.
But your advice was far superior to that advice. Dr.
I'm
McIntosh,
not sure, but thank you.
okay, thank you so very much. And
All right.
my best. We'll talk.
Okay, then. I'm trying to actually find the controls. So I've lost you on my screen. So if you can cut me off there, that would be helpful. Thank you.
You lost me? No, can
Yes,
you
I can't.
believe
I
it?
can't even turn. I don't even know. I mean, I know you all are seeing me because my camera, I guess, and everything is
Yeah.
on, but I can't
Okay.
find the connection to your. That's not for you to worry about. Thank you so
Okay.
much for having me on.
Thank
Okay.
you. And thank
All
you for
right.
your time and your service to our community and America. That was Dr. James. This man has such a resume that it is incredible. He is also um, an author, and he writes for. Let me try to find this. He writes for so many different, and you might be able to find him if you are subscribing to any of these journals and magazines. But you can find him on Twitter at Dr. James C. McINTOSH 1 and find him on Facebook. The Facebook pages for his organization, CMOTAP. I guess I am not Dr. James C. Um, James C. McINTOSH, CMOTAP, and BEPA, BEPAA. And we really appreciate that he was able to spend time with us. At a recent mini conference on Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. McINTOSH showed the kind of human resources CMOTAB and BEPA had. We are so glad that you have joined us tonight. And I want to tell you a little about what's coming up next week. Next week, we are going to have with us, talking about race and ethnicity, historian, educator, analyst, and cultural critic on fascism, authoritarian leaders, and propaganda, the author of Strongmen, Mussolini to the Present, that amazing historian, author, and political commentator, Ruth Ben Ghiat. And we hope that you will join us in episode 5 right here at If America Fails, The Coming Tyranny. Thank you so very much. If you'd like to communicate with us, we're at Twitter at TWN Talk. I am Janice at Janice OCG. You can catch my broadcast at Our Common Ground on Saturday nights at 10 p.m. As I mentioned, on Saturday, we are going to be talking with Harold French, who is the author of a brand new book called Born in Blackness. And it is about um, the connection between the global, the connection between the global ancestors and heirs in the transatlantic slave trade. And that's going to be very successful. Don't forget to subscribe down below and leave your comments. I haven't paid much attention. We had a problem last week with trolls in our chat room. And I'm going to check we have friends in our chat room. And I'm looking to see, and we thank you for participating in chat during this broadcast. And don't forget that this is a production of TruthWorks Network. And we want to once again mention that all of the work that made this program possible was done by El Michelle Odom, and we are appreciative of the awesome, great work that she did. We're going to be meeting with Ruth Ben-Ghiat next Thursday, February 10th, right here at TruthWorks Network. And she's going to be talking with us about race and ethnicity in America under siege. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and we want to thank our guests again, Dr. James McINTOSH. Check our website, ifamericafails.live. Am I supposed to be looking, this is a whole new thing for me. I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking, but I'm looking at you and hoping that you are waiting for the new season of The Handmaid's Tale, and we can talk about it. Don't forget to leave comments if you're on either our Facebook page, TruthWorks Network, or you are at our YouTube channel, TruthWorks Network. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week here at If America Fails, The Coming Tyranny with Ruth Ben-Ghiat.
Seriously? What the actual